Welcome to the Let's Talk About Love, Sex, and Infidelity podcast with your host, Todd Krieger. Todd has over 35 years of experience working with thousands of couples as a licensed therapist in his private practice. Todd shares his insights on this show. It's never too early to divorce-proof your marriage or too late to heal yourselves and have the relationship you truly want.
Hi, everybody. This is Todd Krieger. I do a lot of work with people, partners who have lost their self-esteem over time. They've been weathered over time because they have been manipulated and gaslighted, and they basically lose their sense of self. And my job is to help them regain that sense of self, whether they leave that partner or stay. Even though in order for them to stay, certain things definitely have to change. But today I want to specifically talk to you about this. The title here is The Moment You Realize It Wasn't Insecurity, It Was Manipulation. So in some relationships that I've seen, and I've worked with couples or a partner, that one of the partners comes off as insecure. They need reassurance. And if it's true insecurity, it looks a little different, or even a lot different, than if you're with someone who's trying to manipulate and control you. It sometimes might look the same in the beginning, but over time you start to realize there's a big difference. For example, the goalpost keeps moving. Insecure people, they need constant attention and reassurance. Manipulators, however, they make it impossible for you to win. So you might try to fix their insecurity by changing your behavior, but it's never enough. A behavior that was okay yesterday is a crisis today. The realization you start to have is you're not curing their anxiety. You are walking on eggshells to avoid triggering some kind of fabricated situation that they made up that you bought into. Another thing is apologies and the lack of apologies. That when you apologize because you did something or said something that made that person quote unquote insecure, what happens is you never receive a sincere apology in return. A person who's insecure will still have the capacity to own their stuff and express an apology. But what happens is when you bring up hurt, let's say, instead of the conversation being about your pain, it pivots to, how your reaction is the problem. And they never take responsibility for their actions. So what looks like insecurity, you start to question. There's just a lack of accountability that happens as a pattern over and over again. Another thing that happens, and I talk about this in other gaslighting videos, is that your reality is questioned. Now, does the person who's insecure have a different perception and sometimes challenges your reality? Of course it can happen that way. However, it's not done in a way that you start to doubt your own sanity. People that are insecure, they don't say it never happened or you're too sensitive. They're the ones that, if they were truly insecure, maybe they're too sensitive. And they're not going to say you're imagining things. But people that are manipulating to try to control you, they are. So this whole thing about manipulation versus insecurity. Insecurity is very fear-based. Manipulation is power-based. They're doing this for power, not to be reassured. So if you start to doubt your own sanity and your own memory, that might be a cue right there that the insecurity of the partner is just a ruse designed to make you feel crazy, forcing you to depend on them to define reality. I spent a lot of time with people helping them begin to trust their own reality. What do I think? What do I feel? If my partner wasn't saying those things, what would I believe? The other thing, because sometimes when people are insecure, they might be prone to being a little jealous. Maybe you're out with a bunch of other people and this partner values you and is jealous and insecure and needs some reassurance. That's not a terrible thing. Sometimes jealousy is a sign that they value the relationship. However, that's because they value you and they value the relationship, as opposed to they are trying to, they're saying that they're trying to protect you, but it's really a way to control you. For example, I've had people where they go, your parents, they're quite dysfunctional. Now, sometimes there's some truth in what they're saying, but they say you really can't be with them. I have one couple I work with where the husband, the mother almost was not invited to see the grandchildren, but the husband for sure wasn't, because he challenged. What happened was that, I'm trying to remember, it's been a while now. The mother, who is now the grandmother, kept her mouth shut. But the father, who challenged the gaslighting son-in-law, who was trying to create his own space, he made it so that he had my couple's daughter walking on eggshells. And so she gave in to him and felt like he was loving her to protect her boundaries. But in reality, he was just trying to control the situation and didn't want any alternatives. And it's very sad. The father was not seeing the grandchild. And at the point, I was helping him deal with it. But when we ended the therapy, he still hadn't seen his grandchild, who was now a year or a year and a half old. Really sad. But this was the son-in-law gaslighting the daughter, and the daughter was, at that moment, not strong enough to see it. So that's isolation that's disguised as love. The truth is, and I've seen this with just couples that I've seen, where just let they go, yeah, I don't see my friends. I don't know. I used to have all these friends, and I stopped seeing them. This jealousy that this person, it was actually a tactic to cut off your support system, making it easier for them to control you. Because this father, the daughter of the father, who's my client, had a very good relationship with her father. And so the son was able to successfully cut it off. Of another couple that I'm mentioning, what happened was his friends were a voice of reason. And this gaslighting, manipulative person didn't want any voices of reason in her life, because she might see the truth about him. She might set boundaries with him. She might get healthier. And he wanted control. So that's just two situations that I thought of. There's also the silent treatment or ghosting. Again, the manipulator, rather than communicating, they withdraw affection, they ignore you, or threaten to leave you or punish you for setting any boundaries. You do it my way or else. And the partner, the victim, hopefully will start to realize that this is a calculated move to force you into submission. It's not a sign of fear. It's not insecurity. It's power. Now, I could say that there's still fear underneath that power. There's a fear of losing control. But in the person who's insecure, it's usually, like I said, a fear of loss, a fear of judgment, whereas the power-hungry person just needs the power and probably deep down has a tremendous fear of being out of control, maybe grew up in a family where they had no control, and so the only way they could feel safe is to control the heck out of you. Again, person who's insecure, they oftentimes feel bad for being insecure, and they'll apologize, where the person who's manipulating, they're defensive, they really apologize and they blame you. The person who's insecure might be reactive, and they overreact to maybe abandonment fear, but the manipulator, their plans are all moves to isolate you. The person who's insecure, they eventually might try to respect boundaries and manage their own anxiety, whereas boundaries are a no-no with manipulating people. They don't want boundaries. That's an enemy for them. They treat boundaries as a challenge. They want you to be controlled and not set any boundaries with them whatsoever. So if any of these sound familiar to you, or if you know of any friend or family member or whatever that's going through this, let them see this video. And of course, someone like myself or myself, are really good at helping people deal with their own confusion. It's very confusing because the person who's being manipulated, they want to see their partner as a good person. And maybe in the beginning of the relationship, this didn't come out, so they felt like they were a good person and they want to hold on to that vision. A lot of people who are manipulated like this, they're just really good, kind people, maybe too adaptive, and they tend to overlook certain things until something blows up in their face. I'm here. This video is hopefully something that could at least help people wake up to this very painful experience that's demoralizing, that could take your mental health and even physical health down many notches. And the only way out of it is to face what's really true, to deal with your own cognitive dissonance and confusion, and come out the other side. Thank you for listening. This is Todd Krieger, making the world safe for love.
That's it for today's episode of Let's Talk About Love, Sex, and Infidelity podcast with your host, Todd Krieger. For free resources and materials, head over to toddkrieger.com. Loved this episode? Head over to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and leave a review. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you.